Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Poetry News with R.sen, Squigs, Eddye, and me. How's everyone doing today? Are you well? You good?
Excellent.
Hey,
How are you?
all good.
Yeah, glad to hear it. Would your lives be better with another Shakespeare joke?
Yes.
Sure. Always.
Excellent. Why was Shakespeare the star player in his football team?
What?
Why?
Because he could play right. Anyway, before I get fired, I will get on with introducing my segment and what's coming up today. So, coming up on the show today, we have the Australian Poetry Slam, a Curating Your Poetry workshop, and the greatest poem ever written. But first, I would like to talk to you about myfundingcentral.co.uk. Now, if you're in the UK, you'll generally think Arts Council or National Lottery when it comes to creative funding. And for many other countries, you'll likely have your own main creative funding sources. However, the UK has thousands of places that you can go to for creative funding. And My Funding Central is a search tool where you can find them. It's available to UK-based charities, voluntary organisations, community groups, and social enterprises. And it is free to subscribe to if your turnover is £30,000 or less. They claim it's the most expansive funding database in Europe. And quoting from their website, they say, "Our funding database holds up to the minute funding information on billions of pounds of active grants and dozens of social investment providers." They also say you can find niche funding opportunities that other funding searches may typically miss. Many of these funders will also have a much higher success rate than your traditional Arts Council or National Lottery routes, simply because they're less well known. If this is something you're interested in, if you're looking for funding for your project, then head over to myfundingcentral.co.uk. At this point, I would like to ask Squigs, Eddye, and R.sen, what do you think about this? Do you have anything similar in your countries? What's the funding situation like there?
I think it's a great idea, and actually, I'm not aware of this existing in my country. But now that thanks to the news, it'd be definitely something I look into and perhaps promote in other countries as well. It's a great idea. What do you guys think?
And it's the same here that I'm aware of. I don't think that kind of website exists. We do have like poet laureates and things of that nature, but I do also feel that poetry as an entertainment to other people is very underrated. And so it doesn't get as much funding as, say, you want to be like a future musician or a future artist or something like that. So I don't think it gets that kind of prompts as it should. But this is an excellent idea, and I think it should go global.
It does indeed, because say in Lebanon, we don't have that much funding for anything that has to do with poetry, starting with publishing onward to events, to festivals, to all of that. None of that exists. So to have such a website with that groups together, that's a database for all of the funding opportunities for people and for poets, to be more specific, is really interesting and really important in every community. Yeah.
Well, absolutely, because if stuff isn't funded, then stuff doesn't get that chance to grow a lot of the time, So, I mean, the model's out there. So if anybody watching wants to get in touch with them and essentially copy the model or franchise the model or something, then please do, because we need funding for poetry all over the world. So thank you everyone for your thoughts, and we will be back right after this.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Eddye, and I'm joining you from the north of Lebanon, the city of Batun. Today, I'm bringing you a workshop from Flying Ketchup Press for everyone who is considering publishing a chapbook of theirs, and the workshop is titled Curating Your Poetry. It is a workshop in which you will learn key strategies to organize your poetry for your own records and for creative projects such as submissions and chapbooks. And to be specific, you will use your poems and the poems you bring to the workshop, so you don't have to think or wonder how these ideas and tips that are given to you apply to your own work. This workshop will be 90 minutes long, and it will take place on Saturday, October 16 at 3:30 p.m. GMT. Let's bring back our heralds, Squigs, Martin, and R.sen, and talk about this. What do you guys think about such a workshop and an idea for curating your own work?
I try to adhere to this formula that they used with the bands in the 80s, the hair bands and such, where every album they would have the first song would always be that energetic song, and that would be the first one to be released, and then the second song would always be the sad, sort of lamenting or almost like broken-hearted song, and that formula worked, and everybody became a hit, in the 80s, and I think they still use that formula to this day. I don't know if the workshop will cover that or even if that's relevant, but I've always followed that formula when curating my pieces. Hit them with a energetic piece and then sad piece. Well, it depends on how long performance is, of course. Well, what do you think about this?
Well, I'd say, first of all, thank you for providing me a playlist for the evening, Squigs. I'm overdue some hair metal. I love that stuff. It's amazing. But yeah, so I think this workshop is really important because I know when I made my chapbook, it took me way longer than it should have done because I made pretty much every mistake there was to make at least 2 or 3 times. And had I sought out some of this guidance or had some of this guidance or advice at an earlier point, then I think that would have saved me a world of pain. Because it's amazing how a few simple steps can really transform what you're doing. Just say you've got 15 poems that you want to put into a collection, and just how you order them can be so different into how impactful it can be and things like that. And it's kind of like what you said, Squigs, kind of starting with the big banger of a poem or something like that. Just get people into it and things like that. Different poems suit different points of the collection. So yeah, I think this is really important.
I agree with everybody that this, first of all, this workshop is super helpful because as a writer, I write about anything and everything. I like to say I'm a diverse poet, but really I'm a sporadic poet, and whatever inspires me, I write about. So when I perform, I'm always thinking, what should I perform? And I'll do like one from each theme that I have, whereas I'd rather be able to tell a story when I perform. And also the same with my book. If I didn't have my publisher, luckily he was the one who had to deal with all that trouble. But if I didn't have a publisher and I was self-publishing again, this would be, I feel, an extremely helpful way of getting the poems together and creating an actual like experience rather than, oh, this is just poetry. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm working on a zine right now on like a 12 page zine, poetry zine, and I'm trying to figure out which pieces to put, what the order should be, etc. So I think this workshop will be great. All right, so next we are going to move to R.sen, but first we'll have a break.
Hey everybody, welcome to the events portion of this news section. And today I have for you a very exciting one. We are traveling over to Australia where they are having their poetry slam for the week. And guess what? They went hybrid and they give you free events with that. So come with me on October 16th to online, where they will be having an online virtual workshop right before they go and do the Gillespie regions online event. And before that, they will be having a workshop with the prior year's slam winner, so you can get in on the fun. So come on over. And how do my lovely Heralds feel about that?
I think that sounds fantastic because it's I love how events have started to go hybrid like this, and I don't know why this is something that nobody thought of before the pandemic, because obviously when everything had to go fully online, and now if everything went back fully face to face, I would really miss the performances from the friends I've met who do live on the opposite side of the world. There's poetry everywhere, and exactly, and like there's poetry everywhere, and I think hybrid is the future where it's possible to have the tech. Absolutely. So yeah, I would love to go along to that. It sounds great.
Yeah, I love it too. I think the cool part of it is like it's like a poetry pregame. That's what I keep thinking in my head when they say that you could have a workshop prior to to watching the slam with the prior year's winner, and you can also get in on the fun. So if you've ever wanted to like be a slam poet, boom, this is your opportunity to just give it a practice try.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Like when in Lebanon there have only been two poetry slams, one in 2016 and one in 2018, and there was going to be one in 2020, but we all know what happened then. So I like, for example, for the 2018 poetry slam, there was a workshop, but it was only limited for those who were participating in the slam. So, and I didn't participate then, so we couldn't have this with the previous winner as well. So I didn't have the opportunity to enjoy this. So now this whole idea, because I did meet and I became friends with the winners of these poetry slams, and such conversations are stimulating, and they are some of the best poets I know. So it is an interesting thing that anyone could join and just listen in, or have this contact with a slam poet, a slam winner, and enjoy that conversation.
I think it's great, and I agree with you all. I love the funny, almost ironic sense that social distancing has actually connected us.
I know, right?
In great distance.
Exactly,
Yeah, looking forward to that, R.sen, this event.
Right. So you guys heard it here first. Australia's poetry slam is where it's at. They're bringing the party global, so you might as well all join in the fun. Thank you so much, Heralds. Thank you so much, everybody. On to Squigs.
Good morning, good day, good evening. I'm Squigs, reporting for the Poetry News here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Now, I would like to welcome you all to a reading of Sonnet 18 by William Shakespeare. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too the eye of heaven shines, and often in his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometime declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou oust, nor shall death bring thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as man can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. I'm drawing our attention to an article from thedailymail.com. That piece right there has been voted the greatest poem ever written. And I apologize, probably not the best way it has been read, but yes, that is Shakespeare's most popular of his 154 sonnets, Sonnet 18. It's one of his best-known pieces, and it came up on top of the poll with 18% of the vote. The nationwide survey, commissioned to mark National Poetry Day on October 7th, found the nation's second best loved poem was actually Daffodils by William Wordsworth, also commonly referred to as I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud, which won 10% of the vote. The Raven, a narrative poem written by American writer Edgar Allan Poe in 1845, came in joint third place with 9% of the vote. It shared a spot with Nobel laureate Rudyard Kipling, which he wrote around 1895. The poll by Perspectus Global found that Lewis Carroll's nonsense poem Jabberwocky, which was included in his 1871 novel Through the Looking Glass, the sequel to Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, came fifth with 8%. How Do I Love Thee, written by Elizabeth Barrett Browning in 1890, Lord Byron's 1814 short poem She Walks in Beauty, and Ode to a Nightingale by John Keats, written in 1819, had also made the top 10 of this poll. More modern poems also featured in the top 25, including Worcestershire's For Women Who Are Difficult to Love, 2015, Cat D by George the Poet, 2015, The Point by K. Tempest, 2014, and Cocoon by Holly Poetry, 2015. According to the poll of 2,000 adults, 18% of them love the sound of poetry being read aloud, and 8% often put paper to pen and would write their own verse. Now, also, a spokesperson for Perspectives Global said, "Poetry can evoke strong emotions, and this reveals the poems that are most loved, many which have endured for centuries. Shakespeare's Sonnet 18 is a worthy winner, touching on themes of unattainable love and mortality, and capturing the imagination of a generation upon generation of readers." The study also found that 1 in 10 adults claim that they can confidently recite famous poems, and a romantic 8% have written poetry for a lover. Now, I think this is a great point here to welcome back our other heralds to ask them about what would you think would constitute a great poem. And yes, of course, for more on this article, please check out dailymail.com.
Yeah, I wonder what makes, for example, Sonnet 18 the best poem of all time, or what are people looking for when they want to classify a poem as great? Is it its longevity? Is it how famous it is? Is it the fact that it talks about a universal topic? Is it just because it's Shakespeare? We don't like. What is it? The thing that people look for to rate or to classify a poem as the greatest poem of all time?
I love me some Billy Shakes. He's like the reason why I even started loving poetry. But do I think that this poem of his is his best poem, or to be considered the best poem ever written? No shade, but no, I don't think it's the best poem that's ever written. But it is a great poem, so please don't hate me. Like, I just don't think it's the best poem. And so, yeah, I agree with Eddie, what you were saying. Like, what actually what is the component to judge something as like the best poem? Like, what does it, for me, it's like emotion. What makes me want to like tear up? What makes me want to feel good? And then if I get some kind of emotion awakened within me, that's a good poem to me. But people have different requirements and elements, right? So,
well, yeah, I mean, it's I find it interesting that most of the real top poems in that survey were very old poems, you know, like people like Shakespeare and Wordsworth and Keats and people like that. And yeah, some more modern poems in there, but it does make me wonder what was the demographic of people that were surveyed, and you know, like not, you know, and also, you know, yes, they are some great poems. You know, I love me a bit of Daffodils. I love me a bit of a Shakespeare sonnet. And let's not talk about the time where I wrote a girl I liked a sonnet, and then it was so good she stopped talking to me. Let's not talk about that. But you know, I think, are they the best poems ever written? Not for me personally. They're also not my favourites, although I do appreciate the impact a lot of these poems have had, and potentially the reason why it's so difficult to write a love poem that doesn't feel cliche ridden is perhaps because of poems like these. But if I was ranking my best poems, it would be a very different list.
I think actually to consider what makes a poem great is actually answered in this poem is immortality. Of course, as you've said, that, you know, how the longevity of it, Eddie, you know, but in the last line it says here, you know, so long as men can breathe and eyes can see, so long lives this. And gives life to thee. It's as if to say, you know, if a poem is great, maybe it will last as long as human beings are on this planet.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Yeah.
Well, we'll see. Maybe like more contemporary pieces. You know, we gotta jump, 1,000 years to see if it's still around. If we're still around, anyway. I don't know. I mean, in the words version, or still doing the show in 1,000 years. Who knows? But speaking of
That'd be
which,
cool.
yeah, yes.
Look at us creating
Yeah.
a legacy right here. That's it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll put on a new hat in 1,000 years.
Yeah.
But so that was our show for this evening. Thank you everyone for joining us. Martin, Eddie, please sing us off for the week.
So we have loads going on here at PGM. We have the poetry news every Monday. We have the Poets React. We have the Poets Lighthouse. We have content on Instagram. We have Bottoms Up, our open mic. We have stuff on TikTok as well. I'm too uncool to understand TikTok, but if you have TikTok, check us out on there. And yeah, loads to follow. And Eddie has all of the social media links.
Yes. TikTok. We're on TikTok. And we're everywhere. You can check us out on Instagram at the PGN official. You can also check us out on Facebook at the Poetry Global Network. And if you have anything you would like to tell us, like what do you think the best poem of all time is? How would you rate? What are your thoughts on funding for poetry? What are your thoughts on poetry slams and these workshops? Tell us everything in the comment section down below. Don't forget to hit that like button, that subscribe button as well. And if you have anything, please send us an email at thepoetryglobalnetwork@gmail.com. Thank you, my fellow Heralds. Thank you, everyone, for joining us and for watching this video. We will see you next week.
Cheers, everyone.